In 2026, the internet wrestling community is absolutely insane. So today, what I want to know is what were they like in 2005, 20 years ago? Let's find out. I was able to track down a forum that has archived IWC content dating all the way back to 2005. If it could go back farther, I would go back farther. But if you want to see somebody go back further, I recommend checking out the Solomonster. He has a great series called RSPW Rewind. RSPW, a separate forum that has posts dating all the way back to like the early 90s. A lot harder to find though, and I'm not going to hop on there. That's his thing. I'm going to link his video in the description though, because his series is great, and he's just a great mind for wrestling. That being said, let's hang out and talk some wrestling. It's going to be a long one, so get your food ready, and we're going to chat some wrestling. Also, I did record this earlier in the day, so that's why I'm about to lose the flannel and the hat, all right? I got cold, I put this on. I'm Canadian, get off my back. Was that smooth? Nah, this is still, I thought that would be a smooth transition. Now, this is even a little before my time. I didn't start watching wrestling till, honestly, 2008. I've been watching for about 18 years. So yeah, it would have been about 2008. So, you know, this is even before my time, and I know all of this shit because when you're a wrestling nerd, you know what goes on. But some of this stuff is going to be relating to weekly TV that I didn't watch, segments that I know about, but we're going to be learning together, and that's why the comment section on my channel is so important. I want you guys to let me know in the comments, especially if you were watching at the time, add some perspective for not only me, but other viewers that might not have been around to some of this stuff. There's stuff that I'm gonna know, there's stuff that I'm not gonna know, and we're just gonna have fun with it. So the first post we've pulled here is in relation to Brock Lesnar and in relation to Evolution. This was posted May 4th, 2005. So I thought today, are they dissolving Evolution? What if they bring Brock Lesnar back, make him part of Evolution? Then later on, if they wanted to, he could get tired of playing second fiddle to Triple H and destroy him. Or turn Triple H face and top heel is Lesnar. Could Triple H ever be face again? I think Lesnar's better as a heel. I miss the days when Paul Heyman was managing Brock, egging him on, and then telling him to stop before killing someone. Thoughts? Well, I'll give you my thoughts. It's funny because that did end up happening in 2012, Brock Lesnar and Triple H. It was the other way around, Brock Lesnar destroying Triple H, breaking his arm, leading into SummerSlam, the perfect storm or whatever they called it, and then they had their little program going into WrestleMania and beyond. But thinking back, 2005, so this would have been, obviously, Randy Orton left Evolution, was turned on in 2004, Batista left in early 05, won the title from Triple H at WrestleMania 21, and this would have been right around the time of their, like, post-Mania feud. So Evolution is pretty much non-existent at this point. It's Ric Flair and Triple H. So this guy's thinking maybe Brock, but here's the thing. Evolution was about the past, present, and future of the business, right? So Ric Flair was the past, Triple H the present, Randy Orton, Batista the future. So bringing in Brock, which he would not have come back at that time, him and Vince were very much at odds, and Brock was doing his whole thing with the NFL, I think, at that point, because this is before I think he went to New Japan in 2006. For one, yeah, they wouldn't have brought Brock back. It's cool to speculate, but no, that wouldn't have happened. But Evolution, that wouldn't have worked because Brock at that point had already main evented WrestleMania. He'd already been a multiple-time WWE champion. He worked Goldberg, he worked Angle, he had beaten The Rock. Like, where would he fit? Would he and Triple H just be the present side by side? That doesn't really work with the statement of Evolution. So to answer your question, I know I'm 21 years late, but no, that wouldn't have worked. But I do see what you mean about Brock and Paul Heyman, and guess what? That actually did happen, so good job, buddy. And then we have a reply to that from King Popper, and he said, nah, Lesnar looks goofy in his suit. Yeah, I agree, he does. If he did come back, he should come back as the monster he once was, which he did, but Vince would have him job to Cena and Batista first as payback for leaving. That's hilarious, because who did Brock job to in month one of his return in 2012? John Cena. Didn't job to Batista. Batista was gone, but I'm sure that they would have fit that in somewhere. That's funny. This is from Mr. Slash on March 10th of 2005. I was pretty skeptical about the whole Carlito thing, but oddly, the character grew on me. I didn't care for Razor at first either, but I would end up liking him. Now, Mordecai, I thought was a very cool character, and I could see him involved in a huge feud with Taker. That did not happen. As far as Suzuki, I see him as just another person like Ultimo, Paul London, Akio, and many others. Wasted talent. I think Vince just signed some of these people so other people cannot use them. Paul London could have been something special with Brian Kendrick, and there was that whole thing where he, I guess, laughed during the Vince is Dead segment. And that was so stupid. Whoever's idea that was, fucking fire them. It was Vince's, so fire him. Mordecai, oh, Mordecai, that wasn't gonna work. I mean, he came back as Kevin Thorne from what I remember, and I don't think that worked either in ECW. This is one that's interesting. CM Punk chances in the WWE from Mischief. May 22nd, 2005. Lately, I've been wondering about who made a direct transition from jobber matches on Heat or Velocity to a full-time contract. And the only one I could think of, well, two, were the Hardy Boys. So with that track record in mind, I'm not too sure if Punk will be getting offered a full-time contract from WWE anytime soon. As much as I want to see him in WWE, he seems destined for TNA. That poor CM Punk. I wonder what happened to him. I wonder if he ever made it, or if he was just TNA, a job guy for life. More on CM Punk possibly signing with WWE. This is from the Shrieking Sheik, June 5th, 2005. According to sources within WWE, they are very keen on bringing CM Punk to the company. They also believe that once signed within a couple years, he will be on main event status. I don't know who reported that, but there is no way in hell that they thought anything like that of CM Punk. They saw what he was doing on the indies. They saw he had some buzz. They wanted to sign him up, but no, they did not see him as a main event guy right at the gate. They put him in ECW, and they told Paul Heyman to get rid of him. And the only reason they didn't get rid of him is because Paul Heyman stood up for him. And the reason Paul Heyman left WWE in 2006 after New Year's, or December to Dismember, that horrible chamber match that ended with Bobby Lashley winning, and Paul Heyman was pushing for CM Punk or Rob Van Dam as it was a whole thing. There was a whole thing on a plane, and it left Paul Heyman. They still have not discussed what happened on that plane to this day, but apparently it was terrible enough that even Paul Heyman doesn't want to bring it up, and it made him leave the company for, what, 8 years? No, 6 years. A long time passed before Paul Heyman and Vince McMahon were back on working terms after that, and that was all because of CM Punk, the guy they did not want to push. So I don't know where you're getting this information from. Punk has been working dark matches and heat matches recently, and one source predicts that he'll end up tight with Triple H because the two are similar in their passion for pro wrestling and similar as people overall. Brother, that is a bold prediction that you were very much in. I mean, I guess you could argue in 2026, but we're talking 21 years of time has passed. I don't think you were thinking this far ahead. But no, he was not tight with Triple H. Quite the opposite. And honestly, a big reason Punk even left the WWE in 2014 was a lot to do with Triple H. So, no, that's not what happened. That's not what happened. And then Tenacious B says, yay, another Triple H. But in all seriousness, I would love to see him brought in. Hopefully they don't change up his character too much. Watered down is a better way to think of it. I really hope he does sign and he gets along with Trips, because we all know Hunter doesn't mind jobbing to his friends. Good luck to Punk. Y'all were really optimistic that those guys were going to have a relationship. That did not happen. And Triple H was not thrilled about the idea of jobbing to Punk. In fact, he flat out refused to. And then when he finally had decided we were going to put over Punk at Mania, Punk was already outski. He did not want to be a part of that company anymore. So took him a while to warm up to him, I guess. And then a response from HBK is my hero still. Yeah, this could be good news for my boy Punk. I would love to see him pedigree H his ass off the top rope and take the strap. But sadly, reality steps in and I can't see that happening. Well, you're right. That was not going to happen. And for a fact, Punk wasn't even going to bring the Pepsi Plunge to WWE. You think that they were going to allow CM Punk to bring a better, more impactful version of the pedigree to WWE while Triple H was still on top? You really think that was going to happen? If anything, that would have destroyed his career, and Triple H would have made an even bigger enemy out of him than he did in the first place. Just saying. I'm sorry, but I hope Punk goes to TNA. I really don't want to see him become misused. Maybe have to change his gimmick and wrestle under the safe style. TNA would be a much better choice, in my opinion. Well, if you're going to take yourself mentally back to 2005, look where WWE was. Look who was on top. Batista, John Cena, two big dudes that were, whatever in the ring. Batista was, I like Batista, but you know, he was Batista. He wasn't doing anything flashy. And John Cena honestly was pretty green still at that point, to be honest, especially for his position. And that was the top of the card. You had Triple H. You still had those guys. And yeah, CM Punk was gonna have to probably tone down his style significantly. He wasn't gonna be working the matches like he worked with Samoa Joe in Ring of Honor. Like, that just wasn't gonna happen. So from a wrestling fan's perspective in 2005, I 100% see why you would be thinking, yeah, go to TNA, because TNA was having, you know, the 05, that's the year we got that legendary triple threat match at Unbreakable with Christopher Daniels, AJ Styles, and Samoa Joe, and that was the style going on. So yeah, I think in ring-wise, Punk would have excelled in TNA, and I think if it wasn't for Paul Heyman, that's probably where he would have ended up and probably would have made his name. That's just reality, because if it wasn't for Paul Heyman, CM Punk would have been fired. But yeah, I mean, I totally, like, looking back on it, obviously it was great that he went to WWE and stayed, but at the time, I totally see that. That's a valid point. From Evil Master Betty, it's better for us for him to go to TNA. It's better for him to go to WWE. Way better payday potential. Absolutely. For sure. TNA, for all the credit I will give it, for especially in the 2000s being this great place for wrestling, and we had so many greats there. AJ Styles, we had Sting, we had Angle, obviously, guys like Abyss, Frankie Kazarian, Christopher Daniels. I could go on and on. So many, Samoa Joe, so many amazing wrestlers came through there. But TNA, when it came to actual like pay structure and taking care of their talent, was not great. In fact, it was bad, especially for the knockouts, but even for like the male talent, unless you came in there with a name like a Sting, like an Angle, like they weren't really taking care of you, and you were on the hook for a lot of your medical expenses too. Like there were a lot of situations where guys would get hurt, and even if the company took care of you, then it would be coming off your pay. You know what I mean? Like they didn't have that same, where if in WWE, if you got hurt in the ring, like you're taken care of, you're still getting paid. It was very different. So if you're just going off of the pay potential, yeah, it's Punk much better off in WWE. I think he probably would have made a bigger name quicker in TNA, because I think it took a bit of time for him to break that ceiling in WWE, but I think the fan support was just so strong, it was just hard to deny him. This is from Obi, June 5th, 2005. Well, he wrestled a better than average star/jobber match against Val Venus for 10 minutes on Heat. I don't see why he couldn't adapt. Val Venus, that's where we're setting the bar. He had a good match with Val Venus. Terrific. Imagine him being repackaged with a computer hacker gimmick, or maybe Christy Hemi's main servant or something. Oh boy, imagine that. Say goodbye to the Pepsi Plunge. Well, yeah, they'll probably tell him to do a crossbody for a finisher in WWE. All newcomers should do a crossbody. No, he ended up taking a move from Kenta. So we did have to say goodbye to the Pepsi Plunge, though. Probably for the best, though, because I feel like that eventually would have just cooked his knees over time. Like, that's a bump to take, especially on the schedule back then. No, thank you. This is from Clara, June 5th, 2005. I'm not gonna pretend I know how to pronounce that. From what I've seen of Punk lately, he could easily fit into WWE's style. And about the Pepsi Plunge, am I the only one that noticed that when somebody jumps off from the lower levels to the big leagues that the finisher gets changed, so he can't do the Pepsi Plunge? Oh well, I'm sure the man has 1,000 other moves that he could do. That is true, and he ended up finding something that I think most of us would argue became a lot more synonymous with him and more iconic, unfortunately for Kenta, but CM Punk made it bigger. And yeah, I mean, that's just the WWE system, and that's how Vince was. Like, regardless of how big you were outside of WWE, Vince didn't want to push you unless you were his creation, his design, his packaging. So everybody had to kind of go through that. CM Punk did kind of bring his own brand, but at the end of the day, Vince isn't going to treat you the same way he treats his own creation, like John Cena, like a Batista, like those guys at the time. If you weren't his kind of ideal molded piece of clay, you're not going to get that same treatment. So that's just the reality of how Vince operates. He's a control freak. Always has been, always will be. They said he's a future main eventer, so the only time I could see him using the Pepsi Plunge is when he beats Triple H for the title eventually in a few years. Yeah, he didn't beat Triple H for the title, but he did win the title technically. If we're talking like, I mean, he won the ECW title in 2007, but I'm gonna choose to not count that because WWE was not treating the ECW title with much respect. He won the World Heavyweight title in 2008, so yeah, 3 years after this. So, you know, he wasn't wrong about part of that, but no, he was not beating Triple H for it. That's for sure. From Lil Dude 82 1-8. I'll book his debut right now. It'll go something like this. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the WWE Little H. Why do you guys have this weird, like, the Punk Triple H narrative was going far before it was a reality. The former CM Punk walks out onto the ramp on Raw, tilts his head back, spits out a mouthful of Pepsi straight into the air. Oh man, like, no, I don't know where this similar, is it because they both don't do drugs and drink? And they both love wrestling. I think that's where the parallels kind of end at that point. They're very different people. From Crazy Rose, why would he beat the crap out of Triple H? Did RVD dominate The Undertaker in his debut? Could you see them putting American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, over JBL? That would have been an interesting feud. Yeah, so no, CM Punk was not going to come in and dominate Triple H. He wasn't even going to come in and work with Triple H. He worked with him eventually on that Survivor Series 2006 where he was on Team DX. But yeah, no, he was not a fan of him for a long time. It took a long time for those two to mend fences. Like, I'm talking 2023. That's when they finally were able to squash it. Like, I don't know where this narrative came from that they were going to be buddies. It was not going to happen. So this post I found interesting. This was following the One Night Stand pay-per-view in 2005. Eddie Guerrero on that show wrestled Chris Benoit. And this, starting with this post here, is a source from the Pro Wrestling Torch. The often grumpy Eddie Guerrero was very unhappy with the finish for his match against Chris Benoit at the ECW pay-per-view. He's said to have never really gotten into the event as a whole. After the match, there were some very heated words exchanged between Guerrero and Chris Benoit as a result of how the match went and how unhappy Guerrero was with the finish. Guerrero was also upset with the crowd chanting at Edge during the opening minutes of his match against Benoit. And then this is what the user had to say. Whoop-de-doo says, I guess that eliminates the acting and character explanation that some people have suggesting. So I guess there was some heat potentially so-and-so between Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit. Now we know Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit were the best of friends. And Eddie Guerrero was kind of like Chris Benoit looked at him like almost like a spouse in a weird way. You know what I mean? Like, it was, if you saw the Dark Side of the Ring episode, you kind of know what I'm talking about, where guys like, you know, Chavo and Jericho kind of really dove into that. But like, they were close, and they probably fought like brothers at times, but I don't think there was any real bad blood or dissension besides just professional, maybe frustration in the moment with whatever was going on. But I don't think there was any legit beef. Like, Chris loved Eddie Guerrero, man. Like Eddie's passing is pretty much, and I think widely accepted, kind of, obviously Chris Benoit had issues, CTE, all that, but where his like mental state really started to go downhill was when Eddie passed. So I don't think there was any like legitimate bad blood here, other than maybe just brothers fighting that night because, I don't know, that it didn't go the way they wanted it to go. Man, honestly, some of these comments make me really sad. This is from Rick Mad, June 15th, 2005. Eddie just really needs time off. Really needs time off. This makes me sad. I really like Eddie, but I don't like this news. Yeah, man, and even the people before anything with Eddie happened were watching and we're seeing and we're saying, like, dude, give this guy time off. He's burning out. He's frustrated. Like, there was just a lot going on and issues he was dealing with, and the word has it at the time, like, he was clean. He wasn't on drugs or anything, but his body was still ravaged from years of abuse, steroids. As we know, like, he died of, was a heart failure, and his heart was enlarged, which obviously is a side effect of steroids. There are other issues he was going through that I'm sure were affecting him and how he felt and all this stuff. And it's sad, like, even at the time, like, the fans were picking up on some of that stuff. And then this guy says, Dennis Stamp, somebody should give Eddie a pair of diapers. I truly believe now that Vince was right to take the title off him last year because it's obvious Eddie can't control himself. Look, that's not what happened. Eddie Guerrero was very public in term with management that the pressure was getting to him, being champion, being the guy, and he saw JBL as somebody he could really make into a star, and he pushed to drop the title to JBL. It wasn't that management said, hey, we need to get the title off Eddie. No, Eddie wanted to put over JBL. Eddie wanted to make JBL a star. Eddie was one of the most selfless human beings in the wrestling business, and he saw an opportunity where he could make a star that could potentially make stars. You could argue that Eddie Guerrero is partially responsible for the rise of John Cena, because Eddie Guerrero turned JBL into this hated, like, heel champion that somebody like John Cena could overcome and become a star. Like, that's because of Eddie Guerrero noticing talent and saying, this guy, we need to go with this guy, we need to make this guy. So, I mean, obviously these people are just like the people today in the IWC that chat shit online and act like they know everything. But dude, like, Eddie is one of the most selfless wrestlers of all time. It's not obvious he couldn't control himself. He loved professional wrestling. And he got frustrated when things didn't go the way he wanted them to, especially when he's working someone like Benoit, who he's got like this insane chemistry with, that he's had classic matches with in the past. If there was an issue or whatever, something didn't go right, like, I can understand why he's frustrated. These guys were both passionate. It happens, man. But no, that's not why they took the title off Eddie. Eddie lost the title because Eddie is a fucking legend. And he put the business before himself. Now we have some posts regarding the Money in the Bank contract. If you don't remember, 2005 was the first Money in the Bank match, so there was no set precedent of how the Money in the Bank was gonna work. There was no like cash-in dynamic. Everything regarding it was all speculation. So this is from Space Ace on May 3rd, 2005. Since Edge won Money in the Bank, he's been carrying that suitcase around just like Mongo used to carry around the Halliburton full of money he got for joining the Horsemen, and alas, being a heel. He's now used said briefcase to thwack opponents and win matches. We all know Triple H versus Batista Hell in a Cell is coming, so it seems like the earliest Edge would demand a match is SummerSlam. I only assumed WWE would build a match happening on pay-per-view then rather than throwing it away on Raw, so we could expect at least 4 more months of Edge smacking people with the briefcase. Being the only heel left in the tourney unless Jericho turns soon, it would seem to be he would seem to be the favorite to win the whole thing. Like I said, I was not watching the weekly product, but apparently around this time there was a tournament going on to crown like a #1 contender. I can't remember. I don't know if that was for Edge or for Batista or for Cena. I'm assuming Batista. Although I could see Benoit winning, because the office knows he can carry, Batista to a very good match. Does anyone see him winning the tournament and Lita turning and joining him, saying that she doesn't want to be with a winner, or she wants to be with a winner or something like that, unless Lita becomes Deborah? Does nothing but carry the case since she can't wrestle without getting hurt these days, because I guess she was having some issues. So I guess this would have been before Edge and Lita were appearing on screen. I guess this would have been May 3rd. This is where I need you guys to step in, because I was not watching at the time. May 3rd, 2005. Edge had won Money in the Bank, but was he not with Lita at this point? I can't remember. I'm drawing a blank. Or was Lita still doing the thing with Kane? I don't know. I think she might have been still doing the thing with Kane, because Matt Hardy, I don't know, but my timelines are getting crossed. But you were right to predict that Edge and Lita would end up being a couple. And you're assuming that Edge would demand a title match at SummerSlam. Well, Edge ended up wrestling Matt Hardy at SummerSlam. And I think Batista worked with at SummerSlam. God, 2005 is such a weird year for me. I don't remember much. Like 2004 I know pretty well. 2006 I know pretty well. 2005 for some reason kind of falls through the cracks a little bit. From Ultimo Chocula on May 3rd, 2005, I would say Edge is the new version of the Warrior since he believes his own bullshit. That's a... It's funny because Edge was actually in the crowd at WrestleMania 6 when Hogan and Warrior happened and Warrior won the title, but that's the last person I would compare Edge to. From Push Triple H. Wow, what a name. What a name. Actually, if Edge and Lita teamed up, that would generate real heel heat. Then if they were caught saying they hired Snitsky to get rid of Matt's baby, all 3 of them would be massively over as heels. Then Matt and Kane together versus Edge and Gene. Oh my lord. Did Vince make a burner account and he just wanted to like test the waters on that? Well, Edge and Lita did end up teaming up, so I guess this was before that. That makes sense. And that would generate real heat. It did, but they hired Snitsky to kill the baby? What? That's crazy. I mean, hell, we're talking about mid-2000s WWE Vince McMahon. Would he have done it? If somebody brought it up, he probably would have done it. He's a lunatic. But that just sounds terrible. I'm going to be honest here. If that did play out that way, we would be talking about that the same way we talk about Katie Vick. I promise you. I promise you, that would have been fucking terrible. Now this took place on June 12th, 2005. I am at ECW One Night Stand, so this guy was in the audience and he was posting from there. I am at ECW One Night Stand. Woo! Right now, I'm posting from my BlackBerry. I remember I've always wanted a BlackBerry. I never got one though. The match I'm watching right now is the second match, Tajiri versus Super Crazy versus Little Guido. It is pretty crazy. Super Crazy does a balcony dive from the top. Sweet. I find that funny. So this guy was posting live, and that wasn't a thing. Like, I know a lot of you youngsters are probably like, oh yeah, I'm posting from a wrestling show. No, nobody's ever done that. But like 2005, yeah, nobody really did that. And as you can see from the comment, what's a BlackBerry? A laptop? BlackBerry, I think, was still new technology in 2005. I can't remember the year that came out. And he responded, it's a really expensive $600 cell phone. Back in the day when $600 was expensive for a cell phone. My God. Nowadays, an expensive cell phone's like $2,000. With really advanced web surfing capabilities, so I can go on websites and post and stuff. Wow. Fancy guy with his fancy BlackBerry. I remember back in the day having a cell phone when you accidentally clicked like the internet button and you're like, oh fuck, and you're trying to exit quickly because you don't want to be charged. Nowadays, I just have data, like unlimited data, and I just do what I want wherever I want. It's a very, very different world than it used to be. So this is interesting. If you remember 2005, there was that Gold Rush tournament on Raw, and it had that infamous match between Shawn Michaels and Shelton Benjamin. I'm sure every single one of you has seen the clip. Shelton Benjamin hitting the springboard into the Sweet Chin Music, and this was right after that match from Mr. Goodfella, May 3rd, 2005. I came to the board this morning expecting to see nothing but praise for what I thought was an amazing match between Shelton Benjamin and HBK. I was quite surprised when I saw that some people were not happy with the outcome. I really cannot understand this. I think the match went perfect and had the perfect outcome. They are bringing Shelton along perfectly. I miss the slow build-up of a wrestler. Last night did more for Shelton than anything he has been involved with thus far, save maybe the ladder match at WrestleMania. Shelton came across as having all the tools to beat HBK and the ability. It was just HBK's experience that got him the win. It wasn't because he was better than Shelton. It was because he had a trick up his sleeve that comes with 20 years of wrestling that Shelton didn't expect. Shelton got a little too excited, and it cost him the match. That is the perfect psychology for a match like this. And Shawn's actions after the match just sealed the deal. I thought the way he kept looking at Shelton like, man, this kid is something. I got out of this by the skin of my teeth was perfect. HBK has always been really good at telling the little things like that. I saw the complaining that Triple H jobbed to Shelton and HBK should have done the same thing, but in reality, this match did more to further his career than those fluke wins over Triple H. This match showed that Shelton has all the tools he needs to be in the ring with the greats. He just needs some more experience. The kid is going to be a star someday. A lot of words. So if you think about Shelton Benjamin in WWE, like if I just said, try and think of one moment match of Shelton Benjamin in WWE, I assume a majority of you are going to tell me about the Sweet Chin Music from Shawn Michaels in this match in 2005. Probably the most memorable moment of his WWE career. Not to say he didn't have lots. Obviously, when he Taboo Tuesday, beating Chris Jericho for the Intercontinental Championship, beating Triple H, the stuff he did at Money in the Bank, the Gold Standard stuff he did in ECW, the ladder match with Christian at TLC 2009. Like he did some cool stuff. But if you were to think about what the most iconic moment of his WWE career, you're thinking about this match. My God, they had so much potential with Shelton Benjamin. And I don't know what happened. I don't know why, but they just never put the rocket on him. And I do think they dropped the ball majorly. And you see, he's over at AEW right now, and he's crushing it still, like at his age. Not to say he's old, but like, you know, he's in the older crop of guys, and he's still moving with the youngsters. He still looks like he's in his 30s. You know what I mean? Like, he's absolutely incredible. Do I think they missed a huge opportunity with him? Absolutely. Do I think Shelton Benjamin could have been a world champion in WWE? Absolutely he could have been, and he would have been a great champion. And they just never found the right angle for him, the right character, whatever. And that's unfortunate, and I think that's creative malpractice because he's one of the most talented men they had on that roster at the time, and all the people on this forum and everywhere else who was watching wrestling could see that a mile away that Shelton Benjamin was going to be a star. And man, it's unfortunate that it never panned out the way it should have. And just to add to that, we have another poll that was posted here. In 10 years, what level will Shelton Benjamin be? So 2015. 3 people voted legend. Legend. That's what the people were thinking. 9 votes for main eventer, 9 votes for mid-carder, 2 votes for jobber. A lot of people were in this guy's favor. Unfortunate. Creative malpractice, in my opinion. Unless he was just a shit person behind the scenes, which I don't believe for a second, because so many people say so many great things about him. He's so well respected. I don't think he ruffled people's feathers the wrong way. Do I think it was racism? I don't want to make accusations like that. I do think there was a lot of black talent around that time that should have got more opportunities that didn't, and that's just the reality. It took a long time before we got like a strong black world champion in WWE, not counting The Rock, Bobby Lashley, eventually Kofi Kingston, who his win was more memorable than his reign. But I think Shelton Benjamin should have been there before Bobby and before Kofi. I think Shelton should have been that guy in his era. We have some more fantasy booking of Money in the Bank, and I found this interesting because this guy was kind of ahead of the curve because WWE, like I said earlier, had not set the precedent for what Money in the Bank was going to be, and this guy kind of had a little bit of ahead of the curve on what was going to happen. Booking idea: have Batista and Triple H have their Hell in a Cell match, and once it's over, have Edge come out and use his Money in the Bank clause on the winner right there and then. According to the deal, he could do that, right? He could. He could. In fact, he did almost exactly that. Just instead of the Hell in a Cell, it was the Elimination Chamber. Still a big cage match. So this guy was ahead of the curve. This is May 24th, 2005. Props to this guy, Snake Yard. You know what you're talking about, brother. But we did have some people that did not favor the idea, like Mr. Crow T Robot here, who said a WrestleMania 9 finish. Oh, that will go over well. Little did he know, Money in the Bank would become the most exciting thing to happen in WWE in a very long time. No, it did not have the same stink as Hulk Hogan coming out at WrestleMania 9 and beating Yokozuna after Yokozuna beat Bret Hart. No, it was not the same thing. Not even close. Not even slightly. And then Money Inc. says, one way or another, Edge will become world champ sometime this year. You were actually wrong, but barely. He won it at the beginning of January in 2006, so you were close. But he did not win the title that year. So now we get to the conversation of a little-known wrestler. You might have heard of him, maybe. Name was Muhammad Hassan. Muhammad Hassan, if you did not watch the Dark Side of the Ring episode on him, which I highly recommend, it was a great watch. And my God, what an unfortunate story for him. I'm not going to dive into his whole thing, but his career was ended, no fault of his own. He's somebody who did his job to the best of his ability, got genuine heat. He saw the red flags before the company did. He tried to warn them. They told him to shut up and do his job. Ended up backfiring, and he ended up getting all of the heat for it. And it's unfortunate because he could have been a star. And they had a really smart idea with the character about being this Muslim American that was unfairly judged after 9/11 and stereotyped. And that's just a really interesting, probably a little too meta and too smart for a WWE storyline, but they really had something interesting there. And then Vince just turned him into a terrorist. And they just made it this racist, stupid angle for just cheap heat. And it ended up backfiring. And somebody who honestly could have been a star, and as you're going to hear, could have been a world champion. And they fucked him up, and it's unfortunate. And he honestly, his life may be better off for it. He works for the school district now. If you've seen him, he's been on Maven's channel. I mean, his life turned around, and he ended up doing some really cool things with his life outside of the wrestling business, probably making more money, just stable income over the years, and was able to, be around his family and not be on the road. So if anything, this might have been better off for him. But it still sucks. From the Dinobot, June 13th, 2005. This isn't just because I'm a fan of Mark and Daivari. It's because WWE could have a top mid-card heel on their hands, and each week on television, he gets shit on. Sorry, we all know it's true. From when he first arrived to the thing with Foley, Hogan at WrestleMania 21, and Shawn, who should have done the right thing and done the job, it's not like those two, especially Hogan, have a whole lot to lose, which is true. And now we can add Austin to that list. That's what got to me. And I'm not usually one to get mad at the product, but tonight they had a chance for Muhammad to keep his undefeated streak on Raw and in the meantime become the Intercontinental Champion. It's not like the belt means a whole lot being around the waist of Shelton Benjamin. I don't know about that. Outside of maybe Triple H, nobody gets more heat than Muhammad. Each and every week, show after show, if you read the house show reports, usually it's Muhammad, I think you misspelled that has the most heat on the shows. So why don't they take advantage of this and really let him get on our nerves by being the one to beat down our so-called heroes, except for being the one to be on the other hand of the beatdown. Yeah, not sure what I was getting at, but there it is. So he was upset basically that Muhammad Hassan is getting beat up by the legends, by Shawn Michaels, Hulk Hogan, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and that it should have been the other round. And maybe, he was getting pretty genuine heat regardless though. At the time. From Jack22 here, the guy is working programs with HBK, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and Hulk Hogan. Doesn't sound bad to me. It's part of the storyline of his gimmick to portray an Arab American who feels he is being unfairly treated and not getting the shots and opportunities he deserves. If they slapped the IC title on him, then logically he couldn't do that. That's actually a good point. And I don't want to give them credit for that maybe they were smart enough to understand that, but you know, that is a good point. I see him becoming World/WWE Champion sometime within the next 6 months. You know what? You're not wrong to think that, because that was actually the original plan, because SummerSlam that year was being held in Washington, D.C., which is Batista's hometown, and the plan initially was for Muhammad Hassan to beat The Undertaker at the Bash, I think with help of Randy Orton, not beat him clean, because, you know, you weren't beating The Undertaker clean at that time. And then he was going to go on to face Batista, and I'm guaranteeing you the plan was to put the title on it. Because when did WWE ever let the babyface win in their hometown? The heat was just and the babyface chasing the title is just always going to be more interesting. So Batista chasing the heel Muhammad Hassan was probably what they were looking at, and maybe even moving into WrestleMania in that direction for all I know. So although this person's wrong in the fact that it didn't happen, that was initially the plan, it just, as you know, things happened. The London bombings happened, and it was the same week that SmackDown had that segment, which I'm sure you've all seen, where Muhammad Hassan had the masked people that were supposed to be terrorists. If we're being honest, that's what they were trying to portray. Like they had those videos of those jihadist beheadings and all that stuff that were, you know, around that time, and that's exactly what the angle was. They choked him with the piano wire. Like, that's exactly what they were trying to portray. It was fucking racist, and it was stupid, and they could have just cut it because they knew what happened that week, but they aired it anyway. I think they cut it out in the Europe broadcast or the UK broadcast, but they just put a disclaimer on it and they aired it in full in the United States. It was fucking stupid, and they killed this guy's career for no fucking reason. From Dennis Stamp, personally, I've thought this since day one. Never seeing either Hassan or Dafari before Raw. That Hassan has a huge future as a face. The looks, the talent, the guy looks like the second coming of the Nation of Domination Rock. Huge praise. I don't think his future was going to be as a face based on his character. And you could have, because here's the thing, the original idea of the character honestly does have a sympathetic edge to it. Like somebody who has been unfairly prejudiced and judged for his looks, for his ethnicity, even though he was not a Muslim. He was an Italian from Syracuse, New York. But, you know, sometimes WWE just likes to put their own coat of paint on things and turn somebody into a different, like Rusev, who was from Bulgaria. They made him a Russian. Pretty sure Mr. Fuji was from Hawaii. Obviously, we know Yokozuna was Samoan. So WWE just likes to do that with whoever the foreign country they want us to hate. They'll just, you look close enough. So glad they don't do that anymore. That was a Vince trope. I do think Muhammad Hassan could have been a big star, though, if they just didn't try to force this stupid racist garbage on him. I think he could have been a star. Ring of Honor means SmackDown will be saved. Interesting. It's from Jobber to the Stars, May 30th, 2005. With SmackDown being moved to Friday nights before it goes to USA, they're going to have to bring in some stars for the draft. Another thread brought up that Mr. McMahon wants to sign American Dragon Bryan Danielson, Samoa Joe, CM Punk, and Colt Cabana, and many others. My suggestion is to put all of them on SmackDown and give them decent pushes and not job them out on Velocity. I'm not saying they need to be WWE champ. Yeah, I can't imagine those guys being world champion. Tag and cruiser champs just to be made into stars. Interesting. Well, all of them would eventually show up in WWE in one way or another. Colt Cabana, didn't really do much, but he was there at one point. Bryan Danielson, it would take another 5 years. Was it 4 or 5 years? 2010? Well, I guess 2009 would have been when he signed. Yeah, so because he was in Florida. So Danielson was about 4 years later. Samoa Joe took a bit longer. He came in 2015 in NXT, which was originally just supposed to be like he was still working the indies. It was supposed to be kind of like not even a full-time deal. And then he just ended up getting really fucking over and selling out of merch. So they signed him because it's Samoa fucking Joe. And then CM Punk, he did come in 2005. And yeah, like I said, Colt Cabana. But to bring them all on SmackDown, give them pushes, like that would have been great. But, Danielson was still crushing it in Ring of Honor, and I think him staying out of WWE until when he did join was the right thing for him to do, and he had a killer reign, and the feud with Nigel and with all that stuff he did. Like I'm glad he stuck around. Samoa Joe was still ahead of his TNA run. Like we hadn't even got that Unbreakable 3-way yet, and Samoa Joe went on a killer run in TNA. He had those great matches with Kurt Angle, Lockdown 2008, one of my favorite cage matches of all time. Samoa Joe really hadn't even hit his peak, in my opinion, even though he had done some amazing stuff in the early 2000s and like the stuff with Punk and stuff. And then Punk, I mean, he was already there, so that's a given. And Colt Cabana was a star at the time. He was there for a cup of coffee and they got him out of it. From Hogan is God. Okay. Yeah, SmackDown is better place for them. I agree. I love Raw and do want to see it impurified by these infidels. Ship them to SmackDown and let them do their little technical, boring masterpieces. I would hate to have to see Batista deal with these boring pieces. Look, I love Batista, but how fucking funny is it that you are calling Bryan Danielson, Samoa Joe, CM Punk, and Colt Cabana boring, and you're saying protect Batista from this boring technical crap? Oh man, you guys are funny. I mean, your name's Hogan is God, so I shouldn't be surprised. From Mischief, the best way to go for them is to use Punk and Cabana to form a Second City Saints tag team and help them make the tag team division better for SmackDown, facing guys like Eminem and the Bashams, I guess. Okay, so your big plan for CM Punk is to have him work with Eminem and the Bashams. No disrespect to the Bashams, those guys were great. Eminem, I mean, Joey Mercury was great, Johnny Nitro was great, featured John Morrison, Johnny Impact, Johnny Moon, dude, he's had so many names. He's Johnny TV now. Anytime he goes to a new company, he just goes with Johnny, and then he picks something that's relating to the brand. So TNA, it was Impact. I don't know, Mundo was Johnny TV for, I don't know, fucking yes. Good for you, man. You're Johnny. It's interesting, CM Punk bringing him in as a tag team guy. CM Punk, I've never in my life would look at him and think tag team. I mean, maybe this guy just had not been too familiar with him and Cabana were buddies, so I guess you could, but when I look at CM Punk and his work and like the stuff he did with Raven and Samoa Joe and those guys and AJ, like, dude, like I'd never in my life would see him as anything other than like at the very least, like high mid-card at that time if you're going to bring him into WWE and start him somewhere. But he's a guy you'd throw in a main event. Like, just the way he works in the mic, the way he could get heat, the way he worked, like, there's no place for him but the main event. And the only reason that it took him so long to get there is because there was still the bias in WWE that you need to be big, massive, giant, roided up, fucking heart swollen, about to pop. It's so I'm glad we're out of that era. Like, I get look is important to a degree, but, like, you can work around it. If you can work around it. AJ Styles is a perfect example. He was never big, but he worked like he was. He worked like he was a big heavyweight. He hit hard, he came at you, he was believable, he knew how to sell. That was CM Punk too. He knew how to work like a heavyweight. He knew how to work with the top guys and make them look good and make himself look good. Guys, if you enjoyed, I would love to let me know in the comment section below. And if you were around for any of these moments and you can offer context that I wasn't able to provide or other people in the comments might not know, please do us a favor and spill it in the comments. I love the comment section to be a discussion where we can talk about wrestling, we can argue about it, we can have fun with it. I don't care. But thank you for watching. If you want to see more content like this, longer, content where we just talk wrestling, let me know. I'd love to mix it up a little bit. I love doing the documentary style stuff too, and there's more of that coming. But I just thought I'd maybe do a little something different. So if you enjoyed this and want to see more, let me know. Oh, dude, we got so much more. We only covered like 3 months, and we just skimmed through a lot of stuff. So there's so much more. Like, I'm talking literally thousands of posts from these forums. So if you want to see more, let me know. Also, upon editing this video and reviewing the footage, I realized the tournament that I was unsure about was the Gold Rush tournament that I was talking about, that I seemed sure about. That just goes to show you, my lines get crossed with 2005. So before I get the comments telling me that, you've probably already commented because you're not at this point of the video yet, I caught it, motherfucker.